Welcome to part one of creating a dynamic workbook index. As we mentioned, this is going to be a few part series showing how to do this. You're not going to need to know how to uh, write macros. We are going to use some, and you're not going to need to know a ton about Power Query, but we're going to be using that as well. The goal is to show you how relatively simple it is to create this sheet index given the tools that I'm going to give you. So we have a blank workbook. I can just come over here and see that these are my sheets, and I want an index ultimately that's going to be on the front page on a sheet called index. So the first thing I have to do, because we're going to be using macros, is save this as a macro enabled file, and that is an XLSM workbook. Okay, I'm saving it to my desktop. So you can see I now have an XLSM file, which means I can now use macros. So now what I'm going to do is bring some macros in. No need to know how to use them. We're just going to go into the Developer tab, Individual Basic, and you'll see there's my workbook. And what I want to do is I want to select the workbook and I want to insert a module. Size this so it fits there. And once I create the module, I need to paste in the code, and I'm going to come over to, I store this in Box, and I'm going to give you a link to this, but I'm going to open that up and you can read. This explains everything, but it's a few macros, and as I say here, we're literally going to copy and paste this code into our workbook. Okay. So I'm in module 1, paste that in, and I can close it. Now I'm going to go into Developer, Macros. I want just this workbook, and you can see I now have all these macros that are in this workbook. So let's go ahead and save this. And what I want to do is I want to run the macro that's going to create a sheet list index, a sheet list table, and create an index tab. So the way I do that is I go to Developer, Macros, and I want the start list out sheet names, and let's run that. You can see that it's created an index tab and a sheet list tab, and there is my table of sheet lists, and that table is now called sheet list. So I like this to be in the back, so I'm going to move it to the end right in front of the macros tab. Okay, now let's refresh this list and see what happens. So macros, I'm going to say update, run. Let's go back to the sheet list, and you'll see it now reflects a tab called sheet list. So that's step one, and in the next video we will talk about the next step, which is creating the ability to automatically update that and creating our index table, which will be done using Power Query. See you next video.